The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, May 19th. And you're going to love this one, Jesse. Today is National Roadie Day.
Oh, yeah. Music industry. Let's go.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Love the roadies.
Today is also, it's also National Devil's Food Cake Day.
Oh, everybody likes devil's food cake.
Yeah. I'm not mad at that. What do you think, Michael? You
Unless someone's mad at chocolate.
I don't know if it's part of the Maha agenda.
Oh, that's good.
That's why it's called devil's food, my friend.
But it's legal.
Yes, right. And it's National May Ray Day today, you guys.
May Ray, like sunshine?
Like the sunshine. Yeah, very good, Jesse. Very good. Just like in my background, the sunshine. You know what I mean?
Right. We need May Rays.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And that's all. That wraps up all of today's national days. But thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms today, you guys. And Jenny is not here yet. Am I correct on this?
Correct.
All right. So we are gonna roll. We're gonna roll with Mr. Michael Minardi. Michael Minardi is a lawyer out in the great state of Florida, who has been advocating for cannabis and cannabis plants and representing patients for over 20 years in the great state of Florida. It is none other. You can find him at Minardi Law out there in Florida, and it is none other than Mr. Michael Minardi.
Hello, everyone. We wanted to change the scenery today so you can see what the office looks like here. A nice light up cannabis leaf we got mounted on the wall. Welcome to everyone who likes the plant. Yeah. So today, my article is a legal issue, and it definitely affects cannabis companies, mostly hemp companies. This is something I've been educating my clients on for a long time not to do, and we'll get to that as we go through the article. But the Supreme Court expanded civil RICO cannabis industry faces new risks in wake of Horn decision. The United States Supreme Court issued a pivotal 5-4 decision ruling in favor of a commercial truck driver suing 3 CBD companies under Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act, the RICO Act. The trucker claimed that he failed a random drug screening and was subsequently fired by his employer as a result of ingesting a product falsely marketed by the companies as containing 0% THC, the primary psychoactive component in cannabis. It's Medical Marijuana Inc. v. Horn. The case focused on whether the civil prongs of RICO permit plaintiffs to seek redress for economic harms, loss of employment, future wages stemming from personal injuries, i.e. the unwanted ingestion of THC. In the lead up to the decision, circuit courts were split on the decision. The Second and Ninth Circuits allowed civil RICO claims for economic harms in such cases, while the Sixth, Seventh, and 11th took the position that RICO excludes economic harms resulting from personal injuries stemming from personal injuries that are actionable under RICO, thereby expanding the types of civil actions that can be brought under the statute. So the Supreme Court clarified this, what types of harms that they can bring. While the court did not address the merits of the allegation, the decision could have a significant impact on the cannabis industry. Some industry watchers predict an uptick in civil RICO claims against cannabis-related companies, while plaintiffs' attorneys looking to horn as a potential blueprint to turn personal injury cases into civil RICO cases. The decision also serves as a reminder to companies to be diligent in making sure they are compliant with state cannabis laws related to advertising and labeling. A brief a synopsis of RICO. It was established in 1970. It was typically and usually is used in drug conspiracies, cartels, organized crime activity. While RICO are generally, there's also a civil prosecution or civil action that private citizens can bring cases. And we actually saw this in the cannabis industry early on in the days where multiple states adjacent to Denver sued Denver under the RICO Act to say that their legalization was unconstitutional in violation of RICO. It's defined very broadly and refers to various criminal activities, including the sale of illegal drugs as well as wire and mail fraud. And that's where this case came in. It was a wire and mail fraud case, which can be implicated when a product is intentionally mislabeled and sent to consumers. A RICO enterprise encompasses various organizations and groups, both formal and informal, that operate together for a common purpose. RICO civil penalties can be significant. I like this because you can get awarded attorney's fees, litigation costs, and they can get treble damages, which, if you don't know, is 3 times the amount of damages that you would otherwise be able to cover. So say he loses $50,000 in wages as a result of it, he would be able to recover $150,000. The background of the case: truck driver suffered chronic pain because of an automobile accident. In an effort to manage his pain, he purchased and began using an over-the-counter CBD product called Dixie X, a tincture infused with CBD. The product was marketed as 0% THC. Shortly after, he got a random drug screen, tested positive. He maintained that he had not taken any other product that could have caused a positive test except the Dixie X. In 2023, he sued the entities responsible for the production of Dixie X in the sale in the Southern District Court of New York, alleging the RICO violations. Specifically, he alleged that the companies operated as a RICO enterprise that distributes and sells Dixie X, and that their false advertising that Dixie X has 0% THC constituted a pattern of racketeering activity, specifically mail and wire fraud, in violation of RICO, and alluding to his economic loss through job termination. The district court dismissed Horn's claim, believing that they were not antecedent personal injuries and they were barred from compensation. The second district court disagreed, holding that RICO does not confirm such an action, and they ended up having conflict with the other circuits and going to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court granted certiorari to resolve the circuit split and answer the narrow question of whether the civil prongs of RICO categorically bar recovery for businesses or property losses that derive from personal injury. The majority opinion, authored by Amy Coney Barrett, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, Alina Kagan, Neil Gush, and Katanya Brown Jackson, concluded that they are recoverable under RICO and are not category barred because they stem from an antecedent personal injury. Implications on the cannabis industry. And, as I said, as an attorney, this is something that I actually had been dealing with the, legal sense for years, because realistically, this is a testing issue. And I think sometimes this is an educational aspect on the behalf of companies. especially people selling it. So as you guys know, who've ever seen a test, right, they have the LOQ, which basically a lot of these companies say that it's non-detectable, there's no THC in it. But that's in those tests that they do when they're sampling these products, they have a low level. Like, so if it's below that level, it's just going to come up as 0 or undetectable. But it doesn't mean that these products don't have trace amounts of THC in them, especially when they're full spectrum products. And we know even hemp oil, pressed from the crushed THC seeds, that has been legal forever, over time, regular use can cause a positive test as well on a drug test. But I think this, in some point, is an educational aspect for those companies that are marketing and selling these products, that a 0% or an LOQ on a test result that they get it from a lab does not mean that there's not THC in it. So they should never market it in that way, especially full spectrum products. On the employment side, I think it's a very interesting issue. We've challenged employment issues here in the state of Florida regarding cannabis laws and medical marijuana. I haven't had one related to hemp, but I think it's a very interesting issue, and I know DOT's position on it is, but hemp is a federally legal substance, and most employment policies and contracts usually have provisions that you can't use illegal substances. It usually doesn't talk about federally legal non-controlled substances. So I think those two issues, are really interesting in this case. Jason, thanks for sending it over. I read this opinion when it originally came out, and I think it could have an impact on the cannabis community, but not companies who are intelligent and, hopefully have good guidance in determining what their labeling is and how they market their products. So what do you guys think?
So question, would a simple disclaimer, Michael, worked on the labeling saying, hey, be mindful that this product could cause a positive on the drug test, and then that would have eliminated this whole situation?
Honestly, I think the opposite, right? Just remove the THC free.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's really what you have to do. And it's a full spectrum product.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, as there's THC in all of it. And if they can't test for it because it's in such a minute amount, it doesn't mean it's not getting into your body when you're ingesting it on a regular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it builds up, Jason. So, we've also had the instance where we had a tea-free product, right? But also the product was a CBN CBD formulary. Well, CBN is a degradation product of THC. So your body can reverse that back in, and you can still test hot for THC in a drug test, which had happened to some people, and we had to deal with that. And it was really unfortunate. It was back in the early days, and it, obviously, everything was formulated with the best of intentions. It truly was tea-free, but the CBN. So I think you have to be really careful when you're talking about people's livelihoods, and it's nice to try to have something sellable, but not if it doesn't work. Go ahead, Yarrow. Sorry.
Yeah, let me hop in and tell you why I think this is the biggest load of crap we've ever covered.
Oh boy.
But an important load of crap. First of all plaintiffs have a duty to mitigate their damages. This gentleman refused a simple drug diversion program with his employer and then subsequently sued for the damages of not having his job. Think about that. He had an opportunity to reduce the outcome to the economic harm, chose not to take that, and then chose to sue. So automatically, he's not a guy I would want to enjoy a beer with, because I think that's a pretty litigious approach. Secondarily, what would this Supreme Court have done or would do if it was too much cocaine in a bottle of Coca-Cola, right? To me, I don't know that they would have the same position. And to say that this is racketeering, I mean, this is a product liability case, right? This is something where it was a hot batch. It's clearly not as the majority of their batches were. And he's suing under RICO as if this was a conspiracy to provide hot batches to customers. It's such a novel application of the RICO laws. I think it's really, honestly, a pretty egregious bastardization of what these laws were intended to enforce against.
and I think you hit the thing on the head, you know, and as defending the company, right? One of the words I said I think was very important, whether or not they were intentionally mislabeling these products and that they're going to have to prove. And that may be extremely difficult for them to do when they have the testing results and things of that nature that show that it's showing zero or you know, negative for THC.
You have any thoughts on this, Jesse? You're on mute. You're on mute, buddy. You're on mute.
You're still on mute.
You're still on mute. Yeah.
I clicked it.
There we go. We got you now.
I double clicked.
Yep.
I'm just looking at this all online. I'm looking at the Dixie product, supposedly these CBD dewdrops that are made from hemp oil, and the lab results. And there is, even in the lab results, there's 1.3 milligrams per ounce of Delta 9, THCA, Delta 8, THCV, CBDV. So there's a whole slew of cannabinoids that are in here that are in the test on the product itself. So I don't understand why they're even claiming this or where he's finding this. I'm looking at the bottle as well, and I don't see a THC-free claim on the bottle. I'm kind of confused.
The
labels could have changed since the lawsuit.
Yeah, it was filed in 2023.
This is an old label. This is from a couple years ago. So it's interesting. I don't know exactly what's going on. It seems like, and then to bring RICO into it, which is such a racketeering for organized crime. It's a really interesting stretch. It seems like, and a lot going on, and it seems like a way more complex case than meets the eye.
Definitely.
Fraud is very broad, and that's really where they're going at it. You know, Carly says they were shipping the products and they had mislabeled, what they're saying is intentionally mislabeled products. You know, and it seems like we should go after, right, the opiate companies and stuff for the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should discuss intention too. And, you know, the fact that here's one of the problems with the CBD industry is the formularies aren't always quite right? You don't necessarily have some of the expertise that you might have in the licensed cannabis sector in knowing exactly what's in those products. So it may not be intentional, but it happens. And also, who's to say this guy didn't smoke a joint and then he's like, oh, what's the CBDs?
It was all THCA he smoked.
But you know, back to what Jenny said around skill. I mean, in order for them to be to lose under RICO, they had to purposely, intentionally deceive and conspire. The fact that this has gotten so far in court, to me, this is clearly a money grab. To me, this is like someone poking themselves in the eye with a pencil and then suing the pencil manufacturer. The fact that all I got to know is this guy was offered a little drug program through HR and said nope, and then decided to sue instead. I think people who decide to sue, I question the use of that as their time. I guess now that you're unemployed, that's what you're gonna do, Mr. Truck Driver. But again, they got a hot batch. That's a product liability issue, and I think it also. I mean, we have to talk about this court. This court and the makeup of this court and the political leanings of this court are unlike any other Supreme Court we've seen in probably 50 years. So I worry a bit about that and how that'll play out with other issues and cases.
Yeah, here we go about that. I mean, listen, my mom is a truck driver. I tried to give her some hair products because she has hair similar to mine, right? That are made by a hemp company. The little labels have little weed leaves on it because it's a hemp-derived hair product. My mom loves her job. My mom appreciates her source of income. My mom would not even use the product or put it in her truck to begin with. There's personal responsibility here when you know that you have a requirement by your employer, period.
Do you have one thing you wanted to wrap up on that, Michael?
No, you know, I just think it's a very interesting issue and realize the other cases that were involved, you know, this is the first one that happened to involve cannabis. So this is less of a cannabis issue than, you know, it's more of a RICO issue and an educational, I think, for hopefully those companies that are still putting, you know, THC free on their product. Because I really, you know, unfortunately don't think that those products exist in reality.
They don't. The THC free products are products that are made with weed, pretty much, and that's about it. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Oh, yes, and we are back, you guys. Man,
Up next, we got the High at 9 head honcho, the highest Republican in every room that he walks into. You can smell him coming a mile away. Jason Beck.
Smell that gas. You know what I mean? Well, you guys, the great state of Nebraska. Governor Pillen orders Nebraska medical cannabis regulations to proceed as legislative and legal fights approach, you guys. That's right. Change raises questions of sincerity days before the legislative debate, the court hearing on medical cannabis, because Nebraska's medical cannabis landscape is heating up as Governor Jim Pillen announced on May 16, 2025, that executive branch staff will provide administrative support to the voter-approved Nebraska Medical Cannabis Commission to begin crafting regulations. This move comes just days before the critical legislative debate and a court hearing in Lincoln, highlighting the complex interplay of Nebraska's three branches of government on this issue. In November of 2024, Nebraska voters overwhelmingly approved two ballot measures, Initiative 437, legalizing up to 5 ounces of medical cannabis with a physician's recommendation with 71% support, and Initiative 438, establishing the Medical Cannabis Commission to regulate the industry with 67% support. The commission, which includes the 3 members of the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission plus 2 governor-appointed members, is tasked with setting regulations on July 1st, 2025 and issuing licenses by October 1st, 2025. And Pillen's directive ensures the commission has support from the Policy Research Office and the Department of Administrative Services and other agencies to meet these deadlines. However, any proposed regulations must be approved by both the governor and the Attorney General, Mike Hilgers, who has been a vocal opponent of medical cannabis. Opponents raise concerns that Governor Pillen appointed Dr. Monica Oldenburg, an anesthesiologist, and Laurel Mutlig, prevention director at Heartland Family Service, to the commission, and both have publicly opposed medical cannabis, including the 2021 legislative effort LB 474 to legalize it. Pillen describes them as experienced, well-qualified individuals who will ensure strong and effective regulations that adhere to the voter-approved laws, and he urged the legislature to confirm them promptly. However, their appointments have sparked skepticism. State Senator Ben Hansen of Blair sponsored the legislative bill 677 to add regulatory guardrails and noted that Oldenburg and Mutig are both openly staunch anti-medical cannabis people, raising concerns about their approach to implementation. In a quote, he says, "If we don't do anything, we have no idea what to expect," Hansen said. State Senator John Kavanaugh of Omaha, vice chair of the General Affairs Committee, expressed similar doubts, stating in quotes, "I will keep an open mind, but any attempt to restrict what the voters passed through bureaucratic red tape should be opposed vigorously." And a legislative push for oversight in all of this, you guys, because Hansen's LB 677, which narrowly advanced from the General Affairs Committee on May 1st, 2025, aims to clarify the regulatory framework. The bill possesses a compromise amendment that extends the regulations deadline by 3 months and prohibits smoking and outlines qualifying medical conditions. It also limits the 5-ounce possession cap to 2 ounces of cannabis flower. And with the rest in manufactured forms like edibles or tinctures, Hansen argues that LB 677 is essential to prevent a, in quotes, Wild West scenario, emphasizing the legislature's role in setting stable parameters that can be changed at a whim. State Senator Rick Holdcroft of Bellevue, committee chair, supports the amendment, arguing it balances voter intent with political oversight. And however, he noted that Pillen's execution action undercuts Hansen's earlier warnings about unregulated chaos, suggesting the commission's work could proceed without legislative input. And opposition to LB 677 is strong, and Attorney General Hilgers, joined by law enforcement officials on May 7th of 2025, criticized the bill as a step toward adult use marijuana, claiming it would supercharge the black market. And he argued the bill's list of qualifying conditions, including chronic pain, is too broad and protects practitioners from accountability. But there's still some legal challenges that loom because the medical cannabis laws face ongoing lawsuits led by former state senator John Kuhn, who argues they violate federal law and unconstitutionality delegate legislative authority. Kuhn's first lawsuit, joined by Hilger's office, was dismissed by Lancaster County District Judge Susan Strong, but an appeal is pending in the Nebraska Supreme Court, and a second lawsuit filed in December of 2024 continues in Strong's courtroom with a hearing imminent. And advocates, including Krista Eggers of Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana, remain defiant. Eggers, who has championed the cause for over a decade, calls Hilger's opposition hypocritical and accusing him of undermining voters' will. And in a quote says, "Our fight remains as it always has, as a voice for Nebraska patients, real people in our communities who are suffering," she said. And if you guys want to know what's next, well, as Nebraska navigates this contentious issue, the commission's regulations, legislative debates over LB 677 and Kuhn's lawsuits will shape the future of medical cannabis. And voters' clear mandate for a safe, regulated system faces resistance from key officials, but advocates and lawmakers like Hansen are determined to uphold the will of the people. And the coming weeks will be pivotal in determining whether Nebraska's medical cannabis program moves forward as envisioned or gets bogged down in legal and bureaucratic hurdles, you guys. Well. Now, that article was super long, and I shortened it down just for Yarrow, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Anybody who gets prefaced in their introduction as being against medical cannabis is an idiot. Because if it's medical cannabis, then there's a medical basis, then there's medicine involved, then there's science, and nobody's entitled to their own set of facts. So when you talk about two people who are against medical cannabis, they're placing their personal value system above science, and that's the wrong qualifications for being in positions of power, policy, or politics.
Yeah, they're legislating based off their ideology, not off of actual science or any real antiquated data. Yarrow, I agree with you on that.
Listen, it continues to be the people that are still portraying the reefer madness. You know, we had legislators here that continue to try to clamp down this industry by 71% of the vote passing medical marijuana, in 2016. We're still fighting against it and trying to get rights for patients regularly and constantly. They're still limiting our product. Every 35 days, you can only have 2.5 ounces of flour. It's just disgusting, and it continues to do the reefer madness against that. Exactly, Yarrow said, these are patients who are sick. We're like, I want this over a prescription drug. They know what's good for them. They know what helps them, and they should have that choice. And it's just disgusting that, our government and that we all somehow signed up for them to being able to criminalize a plant.
I love the way they talk about, if we let this happen, it's going to be the wild, wild west. No, the wild, wild west is unregulated cannabis, and it's already happening in your state and in your neighborhoods and close to your schools.
Yeah.
And regulation is a fumbled attempt to try to wrap our arms around something that's pre-existing. Since one of the people that they appointed is a doctor, I would just say, doctor, this is a pre-existing condition.
Mm-hmm.
You already have cannabis in your markets. The idea is to make it safer, more accessible, less illicit, theoretically safer to the consumer, and to destigmatize it. But I love the way these people think, like, well, if we pass it, it's just the floodgates where the genie's out of the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's no bottle. The genie's all over the place. We're just trying to contain what exists.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very, very true. Jenny Beth, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, once again, enact the will of the people and let's stop playing like medical marijuana. It's the worst thing that's ever happened in Nebraska, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot worse things and a lot bigger things for them to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
It's affecting constituents.
Very, very true. Very true. Jesse, you have any thoughts on this?
Sounds like a similar story to Montana from 20 years ago. The people knew what they wanted. They voted for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these people who are have been in government in their state who oppose the will of the people. And that's just a terrible state.
Yeah, as it is a terrible state of affairs, that's for sure. And these prohibitionists need to hit the high road or something like that. And on that, we are going to continue this ongoing saga, and we're going to roll right into Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis that can help your business get on track, whether that's BioTrack or MedTrack. And she's also the founder of Justice Served, a criminal advancement organization that can help you get your that can help you get your life back on track if you were subject to the track. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Wow, Jason, all right.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Wow. All right, so here's the basis of my story. 2 Florida Democrats in Congress are calling for a federal investigation into the alleged misuse of Medicaid funds to oppose marijuana legalization. Representatives Kathy Castor and Darren Soto say $10 million from a state settlement was funneled through the Last Hope Florida Foundation, founded by First Lady Casey DeSantis, damn it, and ended up with political groups campaigning against Amendment 3, last year's failed cannabis legalization measure. They say $8.5 million was routed to a PAC tied to Governor Ron DeSantis' former chief of staff, possibly violating federal laws on Medicaid fraud. The letter follows investigative reporting from the Tampa Bay Times and Miami Herald and a state probe that ended without charges. Castor and Sotos argue that diverting Medicaid dollars for political use shortchanges vulnerable residents. Meanwhile, Governor DeSantis recently signed new law restricting ballot initiatives and banning psychedelic mushroom spores, just as advocates gear up to try again with revised marijuana measures for 2026. So, once again, Governor DeSantis' wife has used state funds for her own doing. So, back to you guys. Listen, it'd be so much easier to get on board with things with Ron DeSantis if, 1, he was reasonable, and 2, he wasn't such a goddamn opportunist. But I'll throw it back to you guys and see what you think.
Michael, you're in the great state of Florida. What do you got to say about this? You're like on ground zero over there on this.
Oh, and the stuff that's going around about this whole situation is absolutely crazy. And so I also was involved. That campaign had contacted me. It was probably 3 weeks or a month before the election. This stuff came out last year about potentially being a plaintiff on a lawsuit related to this. They ended up feeling like they needed a state representative or senator to do it. They, filed it. It got kicked out by the court. The timing between that and the election was like, there's not enough time to appeal and to fight it to see what they were doing. And then all this stuff came out after the election. So he did it against both the medical marijuana initiative and the abortion initiative. And then that's exactly why they came back this year with the ballot initiative changes to make it more difficult, because they don't want people to pass this here in the state of Florida. It's disgusting. It's corruption, and it's another target for Dodge Florida, I think. That he created.
Yeah.
Isn't this a federal issue?
A what?
Right? This is like, they want a federal investigation because it's Medicaid funds.
Yeah.
It's federal money that was used to sway a state issue.
I actually
It was
think
misappropriated.
the feds give the money and then the states distribute it, so it might not be a federal issue. Because I think this is that correct?
Yeah, it was recovery of funds from a lawsuit or something of that nature that Florida got in, that went to basically our general fund that was then distributed. Absolutely. Or
I think
I
it's
was
really
under the impression that there was a diversion of Medicaid money.
HHS distributed. Well, it was my understanding it was a settlement from a lawsuit against involving Medicaid that came back to the state. And I believe it went to the Department of Health, and then his buddy distributed a portion of that to her foundation.
Sounds pretty messy.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
the governor.
I've never been a fan of this guy. I think he tries to pick these sort of like social wedge issues and ride them for the most amount of visibility. I mean, he reminds me of that person who like didn't have a good relationship with their parents and is just thirsty for all attention. But I think politicians really need to be aware of both the impropriety and also the optics of impropriety. You know, the position of his wife and the people who were getting off on not having to pay all the money, then writing a check, and the fact that the check amount sort of equaled the discount that they got by eventually paying what they owed. Like it just doesn't look good. It doesn't pass the sniff test. My worry is that we're in such a partisan environment in this country that the folks in that state who vote red won't care, and the folks who vote blue aren't going to be listened to. In a perfect world, both parties hold themselves accountable. They self-police, and they excise out. They ban, like the Amish, those in their party that don't seem to be living up to the ideals of that party. I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't think DeSantis is a good example of a proper Republican.
I will tell you that overall, the Republican House and Senate have pushed back against DeSantis more this legislative session than they have during the whole term of his, during the whole term of his term. So it is definitely a different dynamic now there than there was before. And he's gone next year, so,
Yep. Very, very true. Very, very true.
Okay, so I'm diving into this article and reading as you guys are talking, and it does look like this does run afoul of federal law. There's a U.S. code in Section 18, U.S. Code 1347 that says to knowingly execute or attempt a scheme to defraud a healthcare benefit program or obtain money from it. And it looks like what they're being accused of is they took federal funds that were coming from a Medicaid payout that was a Medicaid settlement, but it's federal money, and they knowingly diverted it to these PACs. That sounds as illegal as you could possibly make anything. Talk about a RICO case. Something really nasty is going on here, and it's really sad that it was used to oppose cannabis in a state that seems like the people are very pro cannabis.
Yeah, and so you think that Pam Bondi will go after him from Florida? AG?
No, I don't.
Very interesting dynamics going on there. Buddy of Trump. I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens, but to me, it was disgusting at the time. It's even more disgusting, now that more information that comes out that they use public money against cannabis once again, just to thwart the will of the voter because they don't believe in it. And really, I think it's because law enforcement doesn't want to let go of this cash cow.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty ironic that's coming from a state that was literally built on cocaine money.
So what I've learned, basically, it's like the backlash of that, so because of the drug cart, all the episodes of it, they created these harsh laws. Like, 20 grams in Florida is a felony. In Texas, you can have 2 ounces before you're a felony. Like,
yep. Yep, Sheriff JD Gred, you know what I'm saying? Hard at work out there. Most definitely.
There's DeSantis running a state built on the cocaine money from the 70s and 80s, railing against cannabis because of the odor and trying to figure out somebody besides Disney to fight with. Funneling money to his wife's interests.
Did you use railing because it was a cocaine reference, Yarrow?
He's snorting it up, I'm sure.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Well, Jason.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It was just too easy right there.
It's okay. No, it's nice.
Yeah. We're gonna keep this train rolling. We're gonna roll right in.
I love Florida. I just think they deserve better leadership.
Fair enough. And on that, we are gonna roll into our next commercial, and we're gonna be right back. Oh, yeah. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And also make sure you go into the bio, check out all of our sponsors, and order yourself a case of liberal tears sent directly to your door every day. We promise no snowflakes were harmed in the making of this product, you guys.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Jenny Beth, and we are back.
Oh yeah, are we? Oh, let me guess. Wait, is it time to take him off the shelf?
Yep, time to pick him up off the shelf.
Oh God, well he's heavy this morning, so somebody help me. All right, coming up next, we got the angriest elf on the High at 9 shelf, straight out of the Shire from up under a lily pad, the real estate guru of the High at 9 News, Yarrow Kubrin.
Thank you for the intro, Jenny.
I love when you do it like that. It makes your hands look extra tiny.
There we go. The claws didn't work at first when I first pushed it. My bad, y'all.
I am not touching that comment. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for the good intro. I love it. It's better than Jason's intros. And, you know, you and Rico do a better intro for me. And
yeah,
Jesse, have you introed me yet? I think you did a good intro once too. So, you know, I'm loving it.
Send me something written. I'll do it one of these times.
Fair enough. Good morning, High at 9 viewers. My article today, right out of my sort of playbook of topics, is about taxes. So I'm going all the way to Minnesota. This was published 2 days ago. And it's not that I'm angry. It's that most of the topics that we cover on the show make me angry. And this one is a perfect example. So without further ado, drumroll, cannabis products in Minnesota would see a tax hike from 10% to 15% under budget agreement. Carolyn Cummings, hot off of WCCO News. Minnesota's legal adult cannabis market isn't operating yet. But before the first retail sales even begin, cannabis flower and edibles would see a tax hike under a bipartisan deal approved by legislative leaders. The 2023 law greenlit recreational marijuana with a gross receipts tax of 10% on licensed businesses. The budget agreement announced Thursday would raise it to 15%. That's a 50% increase for those who weren't doing the back of the envelope math. The approved tax rate would be in addition to the state sales tax of 6.975% and any local sales taxes. This applies to low-dose THC edibles derived from hemp, too. There are not across-the-board tax increases, House Speaker Lisa DeMuth, Republican from Cold Spring, said. There will be a small increase on the tax on cannabis. This is almost right-sizing. It was very low. We were one of the very low state taxes on cannabis. I can't believe she's saying this with a straight face. I can't even read her words without giggling like a little kid. Cannabis taxes vary from state to state, with rates as low as 6% and as high as 37%. According to an analysis by the Tax Foundation, advocates and businesses fear a 15% surcharge would make legal cannabis too expensive and therefore allow the illicit market to thrive. When we legalize adult use cannabis, we talked about how this is not a cash cow, said Senator Lindsey Port, DFL Burnsville, one of the authors of the cannabis law, during a conference committee hearing Friday. It is not an answer to the state's budget's concerns. I'm frustrated to see it is being used in that way because it will not be successful. Port blamed Republicans for the change instead of raising revenues elsewhere. Okay, let's be clear. Let's be clear. As much as I like disagreeing on the show, Port is blaming the Republicans, but the first line in this article said this was passed with bipartisan support. Think about that. Your own party passes it, and then you blame the other side. So I don't really think that's clean politics, but whatever. Everybody's got to blame somebody. This comes as a state regulatory agency is nearing market launch. June 5th is a date set for a lottery to choose who will receive one of the capped license types. All right. So let me just kick this off. Okay. So one of the amazing things about humankind is our ability to take information and apply it moving forward. That's how when we discovered fire, we started to figure out barbecue. When we got the round wheel, we started being able to make chariots and then vehicles. And one of the biggest challenges I have with regulated cannabis is the replication of mistakes, not a learning curve, but a status quo that prevents an evolution of regulatory policy. The easiest low-hanging fruit with that is taxes. So we see the tax structures in illicit markets where it's too burdensome and where it crushes the hopes and dreams of entrepreneurs, destroys investors on the cap table, creates little to no opportunity for profitability, and really is a gift to the trap. Because the difference between the cost of goods at a dispensary versus the plug is so wide that it's hard for people to understand what the benefits of buying legal weed is. We see that in mature markets. And we've got markets so mature, they have gray hairs and crow's feet. And now we have a market that hasn't even opened up yet. And they're deciding that they're going to raise the taxes by 50%. So it troubles me and continues to reinforce my angry persona as the elf on the shelf to see dumb policymakers acting like leeches, bleeding the industry dry before it's even gotten a chance to get out of the gate, and thinking that they're doing anything beneficial for society. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News.
Man,
I think I'm not angry this morning, Jason. He did all right, Yarrow.
he did. Yeah, he did. He did fairly well. He's a little bit taller today too. I think that might be why.
You sitting on a book?
Are you maybe a telephone book possibly or a booster seat?
Anyway, all right. So I'll comment on the article. Yeah, I agree with Yarrow. Like you can't bleed something dry, and you definitely can't bleed it dry before it's really started and gotten off the ground, right? I think the biggest focus and where we go wrong is we advocate for cannabis legalization based on tax revenue generation, and we try to get the governments to agree and go down this rabbit hole with us because we're like, you're going to get so much money out of us. And then we don't realize we don't have any money to give you.
So right, that's so true. That's so true. Like these politicians that just swear that cannabis is just such a cash cow. I mean, they need to go back to the days when it was illegal, and then it would be in a cash cow. But now with all of this gross overproduction and everything, they have really bottomed out the market, and there's just way too much going on everywhere, all day, every day. You know what I mean? People are getting pounds for $1,000 and less, and you know what I mean. It's back in the days, even the most trash weed even still went for $3,000 a pound, and it's a sad state of affairs.
For tree fitty in some places, Jason.
Oh, I see what you did there. That was cute. That was pretty cute.
I used to say that I didn't mind taxes. I minded what my taxes were spent on, and I believed that a social safety net makes sense. I believe that another cargo container of cluster bombs from Raython might not be the best use of citizens' money. But I don't really know that the government has ever demonstrated a consistent, responsible stewardship towards how they allocate tax funds. I'm not saying that I agree with the conservative plank of starve the government, but this idea that the tax funds from regulated cannabis are going to somehow be benevolently deployed to help the communities where these taxes were taken in, we've seen already too many times what happens. The ropey dope in Ohio, where they go, oh, oops, we're not going to give you those tax revenues. We're going to take that up to the state level from the general fund. Thank you so much. And so it's not that it's a slippery slope. It's that it's quite toxic. And if they really cared about making the community safer and helping patients, what would it look like if it was just enough taxes to pay for the administration of these programs, and not like what we're seeing in California, where they're increasing the taxes to fund Prohibition 3.0?
Very, very true. These governments, I just feel like they're never going to get it together. They just think that they're just going to keep on raising taxes. People are just going to keep on paying, and they're just going to keep on putting people out of business. And I just don't understand that approach from a government angle. You would think that you would want more people in the pool paying taxes and whatnot, even at a lower percentage, and keeping those people all employed, keeping them all off of welfare, unemployment, everything else like that. And that's how we end up having a better economy overall.
Jason, it's definitely continued to gear towards their hatred for cannabis. They're considering if these people that are so disgusting in a lot of respects, and maybe they don't think that, but I really think that's the mentality of it.
Yeah.
These cannabis users, we want to tax them as much as possible, and then still be able to. And I think a lot of times they want to be able to complain about the black market. They want to have the black market out there to be able to say that cannabis is bad because look at this black market.
Yep. They need a scapegoat.
And just the raising of the taxes and the lowering of prices in the black market area, which you're getting the same product, usually sometimes better, especially when you don't have to wait weeks before the companies get it tested and stuff, and by the time you get it, it's dry, from depending on where you get it from, a local friend or grower. At a lower price. So, it's just illogical. It's just like everything they do in this space. They create rules and regulations that don't apply to any other business. And it's just time to get over it, man. This company, and I hope Trump does something, speaks up and says, this is a waste of our time, a waste of our money, reasonable taxes. And I wonder what the comparable taxes in those states are alcohol and tobacco is.
Well, it's interesting because they use the term sin tax, right?
Yep.
Right.
They're not talking about grammar. They're talking SIN, not SYN, right? And this idea of a sin tax. But if we think about cannabis through the lens of a sin tax, we're actually not destigmatizing it. We're stigmatizing it by even suggesting that it's a sin. And what's challenging to me is that, we have these partisan talking points about tax and spend liberals and then anti-tax Republicans. I haven't seen a lot of anti-tax Republicans when it comes to cannabis.
When it comes to cannabis, you're exactly right. You're exactly right on that, Yarrow.
Like where's that plank of the party? How come they're not as vocal about it for this as they are about allowing massive multi-billion-dollar corporations to have their headquarters in Ireland and their IP in Bermuda and not pay any taxes in this
fuck us,
country?
Yarrow, that's why.
Because of what?
Because fuck us, Yarrow, that's why. We're not a priority. We don't matter.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Yarrow, is that they still view it as a sin. And there's this leftover thing that comes from the religious right that really actually comes straight from the Harry Anslinger himself. And I've talked about this before, how he used the 501c3 status of churches and the IRS as an arm to use the church as a propaganda arm for himself. And combine that with William Hearst and the whole actions that happened in the 30s. We're living in 100 years of propaganda that was passed on to the religious right, and they don't even know it. They have no idea that they're swimming in the middle of this propaganda and that they're promoting something that's actually against their own scriptures that they love so much. And I say that as someone who is a Christian and who knows the scriptures very well. And it goes against everything that they actually should stand for, which is that God made this plant for it to be used by human beings as a healing thing. And it's basically a miracle that's given to us as a blessing. And that's how that's the way they should be listening or should be promoting it. But instead, in these states like Minnesota, they have 30 years of history or more to look at California and Washington and Oregon and Colorado and these states that have marched through and done this exact same formula over and over again, and it never works. It kills the industry over and over and over again. And it's just anti-legalization, it's anti-freedom, and against just what you said, Yarrow. This should be the conservative platform. It is what real conservatives who are on the ground, who are just people in America, actually do stand for.
And I thought that the tax concept could be extended to create bipartisan support for how we quote unquote support social equity within this industry. Instead of maybe giving money to social equity operators, we could just give them a tax structure that is so ridiculously advantageous that we say you already got taxed. That's why you qualify for social equity. So now you get a reprieve. And even that concept I've never seen actually executed in a policy.
Well, that's that whole concept of empathy being used against us as a weapon, where and that's, again, this is a spiritual thing where people in America go, oh, that's a good idea. We should support that. We should make things right and make things correct and raise up those who have been harmed and hurt and had difficult times in their lives because of this. And then that concept is used as a weapon against us, and it just ends up hurting everybody in the long run.
Man, Jesse, you got a whole bunch of bullseyes in the chat from a number of people. So right on for that, and we're going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Oh, yes, and we are back, Jenny Beth Dills.
Oh, yeah, we are?
Yes, we are.
Oh, man. Coming out to the Ginger Grandpa Ninja. Founder of Barney Design Co., Gwen's husband. And High at 9, one of our newer correspondents, back like he never left, Jesse Barney.
All right. Thanks, Jenny. The best was Gwen Barney's husband. That's my
official. That's your official title. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, my story comes out of the UK this morning, out of the Times, and the headline is "Magic Mushroom Drug Offers Hope for Parkinson's Patients," and it's by Reese Blakely, science correspondent. The first clinical trial to explore whether the psychedelic drug found in magic mushrooms can be used to treat Parkinson's disease has delivered exciting and unexpected early-stage results, scientists have said. 12 patients who were given psilocybin in a controlled setting reported improvements in mood, cognition, and motor function that lasted for months. There were no serious side effects, which means that a larger trial involving 100 more patients has been given the green light. Parkinson's affects about 153,000 people in the UK, so I'm sure that number is much, much higher in the US, with symptoms including tremors, memory problems, depression, and anxiety. It is caused by a loss of nerve cells in a part of the brain called the substantia nigra. This leads to a reduction in dopamine, a chemical that is key to regulating movement. We are still in the very early stages, but this first study went well beyond what we expected, Dr. Ellen Bradley of the University of California, San Francisco, the lead author, said. It was unexpected that patients would actually have improvements in their motor function and cognitive performance. These were definitely exciting preliminary findings, but we have to keep in mind that this was a small pilot study. We can't draw conclusions yet. The research published in the journal Neuropsychopharmacology is thought to mark the first time a psychedelic has been tested on individuals with a neurodegenerative disorder. That's not entirely true, but I do believe that it's the first time it's been tested specifically on people with Parkinson's. It involved 12 participants with mild to moderate Parkinson's disease and an average age of 63. They were given 2 relatively high doses of psilocybin, 10 milligrams followed by 25 milligrams 2 weeks later alongside psychotherapy. And it doesn't say if this must be some kind of extract or something that they're able to dose exactly that much. I don't think they're feeding them mushrooms. Nausea, anxiety, and elevated blood pressure were reported while they were under the influence of the drug, but these side effects were not severe enough to require medical attention. At follow-up appointments conducted 1 week, 1 month, and 3 months after dosing sessions, they reported significantly improved mood and motor function. Really important for Parkinson's, well beyond the period in which psilocybin remained in their systems. There are several possible explanations for how the hallucinogen might have helped. A boost in mood may have encouraged patients to become more socially engaged and to move more, leading to further improvements in physical and mental health. Alternatively, psilocybin's effects on brain inflammation and its ability to stimulate neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to reorganize and form new neural connections, may play a more direct role. The main conclusion from the study was that the drug showed no obvious signs of doing harm. The patients in the study were able to complete high-dose psilocybin therapy without serious side effects, Bradley said. That was incredibly encouraging since we were worried about the risks of psychedelics for those with neurodegenerative disease. Reassuring safety data gives us a green light forward. The larger trial is being funded by an anonymous donor and the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. It's a really exciting next step, she said. We will be able to test how effective psilocybin therapy is for people with Parkinson's and also collect multimodal biological data from brain stimulation, imaging, blood tests that will help us figure out exactly how psilocybin impacts different aspects of Parkinson's. We hope this will really speed up progress towards new treatment for our patients. The Parkinson's community has been incredibly supportive of this research. We want to deliver for them. This is an incredibly exciting story. A lot of the stuff coming out of the psychedelic world, as is cannabis when it comes to the science and research, is typically pretty exciting. So I'm excited to see where this is going to go with the next 100 people that they're going to add to this. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but I'm sure it's It's a little bit of time, at least several months, if not a year, but we should see some really cool stuff. My name's Jesse Barney here on High at 9, and I'll pass it back to my correspondents to see what they have to say.
Amazing news.
Right? Yeah, the part this with Parkinson's, it's psilocybin helping with that. How does that actually work, Jesse? Because that's kind of surprising that Parkinson's, to me, at least how I understand it, is helped by psychedelics.
Well, we've had many studies that have come out that have shown that psychedelics in generally, but specifically psilocybin, has helped build new neurological pathways and even repair ones that are damaged.
Okay.
And Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease.
Got it.
So it's a breakdown of neurological pathways in the body, and psilocybin has shown to repair those or build new ones. So it kind of just makes sense. And I think that's why the Parkinson's community was already excited about this, because I'm sure there's a ton of anecdotal experiences from people in the Parkinson's community who are saying, hey, we're having these great experiences, and so we need to put some science behind this.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the depression stuff and things of that nature is consistent with the New York study with life and dying, consistent with the PTSD study, with them seeing no action or see a reduction in symptoms for a period of 6 months after a psychedelic dose of psilocybin. And hopefully Sue Cicely is going to be continuing her research on that in Arizona soon. But I think the psychedelics, our brain is a mycelium network.
Interesting, man. This always getting wrinkles in my brain from these types of stories, because I'm not as educated on the psychedelic space in regards. Like, I've done plenty of psychedelics over my time, but as far as all this research and stuff like this, I find it truly fascinating. And I'm just imagining that if it creates all these different neuropathic pathways, there's a whole host of other brain ailments, Jesse, that psychedelics would be extremely helpful for if it's creating all of these new neural pathways.
Yeah, as somebody said I think it was maybe even Nick said, the Alzheimer's, and really any other neurodegenerative disease, it's showing much promise for. But we definitely need good science. We need to show this stuff in the right way. There's a ton of anecdotes. I've seen tons of people have miraculous results, in their own personal lives, but we need the science behind it to prove it.
Fair.
I mean, such good news that Jesse and Nick agree.
Look at
There you go.
Oh, man.
All right, well, that's great. On that, we should probably roll into our last story. Coming back, bringing up the caboose, Jason Beck.
Oh, yes, you guys. Well, Jesse, I told you I had a story from you because I know how much you love the great state of Montana, because that's God's country up there. Because the governor signs a bill to shift marijuana tax revenues, Jesse. That's right. House Bill 932 saw broad support amongst legislators and conservative groups. A competing proposal is still in play, however, because on May 16, 2025, Montana Governor Greg Gianforte signed House Bill 932 into law, a measure that reallocates millions in adult use marijuana tax revenue to fund conservation efforts. The bill, effective as of July 1st, 2025, creates a Habitat Legacy account to support wildlife habitat restoration and expand public access to Montana's natural spaces, making a significant win for conservationists. A new path for marijuana taxes, because Montana's 20% tax on adult use marijuana, legalized by voters in 2020 via Initiative 190, generates approximately $60 million annually. And previously, these funds supported a mix of conservation, state parks, youth suicide prevention, and the general fund. HB 932 redirects a portion of these revenues to the Habitat Legacy account, which will finance habitat improvement projects on private land and acquire new wildlife management areas managed by Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, better known as FWP.
The bill emerged late in 2025 legislative session, gaining bipartisan support and endorsements from conservation groups like Wild Montana, Montana Conservation Voters Education Fund, and Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, as well as Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Noah Marion, political and state policy director for Wild Montana, hailed the bill as a long overdue win for conservation access, landowners, and wildlife, emphasizing its role in preserving Montana's outdoor heritage amid population growth and development pressures. But competing proposals in legislative context, HB 932 was one of two bills addressing marijuana tax revenue in 2025. Senate Bill 537, which also proposed a habitat legacy account, cleared similar legislative hurdles but was overshadowed by HB 932. And earlier, Senate Bill 307, proposed by Senator Tom McGilvray, Republican from Billings, sought to redirect marijuana taxes to substance use disorder treatment and law enforcement, stripping funds from conservation. SB 307 passed the Senate 30-20 on March 20th, 2025, but failed to advance further, preserving conservation allocations. And critics of SB 307, like Micah Fields of Black Country Hunters and Anglers, argued it contradicted voter intent, as Initiative 190 designated 1/4 of its taxes for conservation and recreation. HB 932's passage reflects a compromise, balancing conservation priorities with other state needs. And another bill, dubbed in quotes "Cops and Conservation Bill," proposed by reallocating general fund marijuana taxes to support law enforcement, substance use treatment, and homeless initiatives while maintaining conservation funding. Governor Gianforte's decision to sign HB 932 suggests a preference for bolstering habitat restoration over competing proposals. And what's happening in the future is the Habitat Legacy account will enable FWP to partner with private landowners on projects like wetland restoration and invasive species control, enhancing wildlife habitats and public accesses for hunting, fishing, and recreation. Conservation groups see this as critical for sustaining Montana's $7.1 billion outdoor recreation economy, which relies on accessible public lands and healthy ecosystems. And the bill's signing aligns with Gianforte's broader 2025 agenda, which includes a $278 million income tax cut, and HB 337, a second home tax for property tax relief, and Medicaid expansion renewal, HB 245. And however, some Republicans urge Gianforte to veto spending bills to maintain fiscal discipline, indicating potential tension over budget priorities. But voter intent and ongoing debates in this Montana's marijuana tax framework stems from the 2021's House Bill 701, which implemented Initiative 190 and allocated revenues to conservation, addiction treatment, and other programs. An attempt to overhaul this structure, like SB 307, faced resistance from undermining the 2020 voter mandate, and Senator Wendy McCamey, Republican from Novak, defended HB 701's balance, stating, "I don't think we are in a position to unravel House Bill 701. I think we can support both, and this bill doesn't allow for that," she says. As Montana's population grows, HB 932 positions the state to invest in its natural resources, ensuring public lands remain a cornerstone of its identity, and conservationists and outdoor enthusiasts celebrate the bill as a step towards sustainable land stewardship, while lawmakers continue to grapple with how best to allocate the state's marijuana windfall, you guys. Well, Jesse, you love Montana, and I can't wait to hear what you guys got to say about this.
This is a really good thing. I mean, despite the fact that they're milking cannabis as they typically do, as we talked about earlier. But this is a really smart way to use it. Why? Because Montana's biggest source of income is tourism. And the reason that people go to Montana as tourists is to go hike in Yellowstone and Glacier National Park and see all the rest of the wonderful natural beauty that Montana has to offer. So that money is just it's going to increase. So it's a great investment, actually. It's something that's just going to increase traffic into Montana, increase people's experiences when they go there. And so it's going to increase other revenues across the board. And it's probably going to benefit the cannabis industry also, because people coming to Montana to go travel and go hiking are going to want some weed.
Yeah.
So it's a recirculating way of using tax money to actually increase more revenues across the board, and I think that's really, really smart.
Amazing. Any thoughts on this,
I
Michael?
mean, yeah, let's
Jenny?
take it from the general fund and give it to the plants and the animals. Absolutely. And let's do what Colorado did and put up some damn signs saying that this park reconstruction or whatever has been paid for by cannabis taxes, so they can see what we're doing, and we can maybe get a little more legitimized as an industry when people are able to see something that they tangibly care about, whether they care about cannabis or not, that the proceeds are going to fund.
Yeah.
If I remember right, Jenny Beth, a couple months ago, we kind of touched on the fact that this bill came into circulation and could possibly happen. That was mentioned as a part of it. That there's some advertising around where this money is coming from so that the tourists even know.
Good.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
You know, I find it super interesting too that it allocates funds for not just public lands but also for private owned lands in relation to Jesse, which I think is a very interesting concept.
That's gonna get messy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of private land in Montana that is conservation oriented, where you can buy land that's yours, but it's kind of in partnership with the state, where you can't develop it, you can't use it, and it's like locked down kind of permanently. And some of it's open actually for public use, but it's privately owned.
Interesting.
So, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that's going on with that in Montana. Some people really disagree with that type of conservation, but it seems really cool to me. So any money that's devoted to keeping Montana the way that it is a great use.
It's a big
Michael, what do you think?
I would say we have some like lands like that too, right? They're like main kept for hunting and fishing, so you can tent, you can camp, but you can't create any permanent structures. You can own property on it, for your hunting and camping. I think it's great. It's a great way to end the stories today with a positive tax dollar.
Yeah. I mean, and I think overall we all care about the environment overall, I mean, to some degree at least. And so I even think that this is a good story. I mean, we all live here, so.
Absolutely.
It's also last note. It's also a win that they minimized. It didn't get completely rid of, but they minimized the taking this money and putting it back towards law enforcement and addiction, as though cannabis somehow causes problems. Yeah. In those areas. So that was a great win as well, is that they said, the people of Montana are saying, no, we're not okay with that. We don't see cannabis as something that needs an increase in law enforcement and an increase in addiction centers. That doesn't correlate to Montana's people. So it was cool to see that actually lined up.
Yeah. Most definitely. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested, and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.